Always something. Always something. Let's flip this around. Hey, I guess we're live, so let me fix all this since I didn't know we were already live.
Something.
That was something. All right, let me
Flip
fix
this around.
Hey, I guess we're
live, so
let me fix all this. All right, cool. All right, so hi everybody. We are live. We are live. Guys, if you're on TikTok, I suggest you go over to Telegram to go get the link to join me live on YouTube. Okay, I'm going to send in a Zoom link. And if you don't have the Telegram link, I'm going to drop it in there in a minute. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and put this here. Going live now on Zoom. Someone just asked too. Yeah. Let's see. Good morning. So, by the way, just so everyone on TikTok knows, I'm going live. I'm going to figure out, oh, here we go. All right. I'm starting to figure out how to utilize the live TikTok stuff. All right. Now, join my Telegram group. That's the link for Telegram. All right. I'm going to pin that. That comment is pinned. Join my Telegram group. From there, you're going to find the Zoom link. You can join me on Zoom and talk to me from there. Yep, I'm live. Someone just erased it too. So he's live. Yes, I'm live. All right, so I'm live. There's on Zoom. I'm gonna, but you don't have to join if you don't want to. Okay. So now, all right. So here's what we're gonna do. We got I love my stickers here. All right. Now, let's start off with whatever you guys want to talk about. How's it going today? Can we talk taxes? Yeah, we could talk taxes. That's the TikTok request is to talk about taxes. So, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that? Let's talk about the 16th Amendment. Okay, let's talk about that first. I think that would be a good place to start. Right? 16th Amendment. So we're going to take a look at the 16th Amendment here. And it says, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Now, let's look at what all of these words mean here, okay? So they have the power to lay. What do they mean by lay, right? What does that even mean, lay? Look up lay. Well, let me do it on here. Yeah, why don't you just unmute and talk? Like you're in the Zoom, so you just unmute and talk to me. Don't send me messages on there. You're lucky I saw it. But just unmute and talk. We're having a conversation. Talk with me. All right? He doesn't want to. All right, so we're talking about laying taxes, right? So if we go, let's look at the definition. Laying, to cause to lie down, to place or bring in a particular position, to put or set down, to produce and deposit, to cause to subside, calm, or lie, to put up to something or against something, to put forward as reproach, to devise, contrive. This is probably the one that works. To devise, contrive, or to come up with. So they have the power to come up with and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived. Now let's look at this word, without apportionment. Now this is a key thing because they talk about this in the Constitution, okay? And let's look at the word apportionment. Let's see what it says. The condition of having been apportioned. Well, that cleared it up, didn't it? Well, they're not good at this one. They act a result of apportioning. So we got to look at apportioning, apportion, to divide and share out according to a plan. Okay, so they're not going to divide it up. See? Now, guys, this is important to understand what it's telling you right here. That means without apportionment, without division. They're not dividing it. So it's without apportionment among the several states. So that means they're just going to collect a tax from the state. You see what they're saying? It's undivided. So it doesn't come out of your paycheck. It's not supposed to. Okay? And without regard to any census, all right, or enumeration. But they already said it right here, without apportionment. That's a big thing. Okay? And this is what happens when you start learning like what these words mean. You start understanding what this thing is really saying. Because a lot of people have a real big misunderstanding on what the 16th Amendment is actually supposed to do. But right there, it tells you without apportionment means they can't divide it up. So that means they can't go and knock on your door and say, give us money, because the 16th Amendment doesn't say that they can do that. It says the opposite, right? So they're supposed to collect the taxes through the states, and the state is the one that comes and knocks on your door for money, okay? Now, that's a very interesting concept too, because a lot of the state taxes are BS too, right? And they'll always go, well, the 16th Amendment gives us the right to do that. Well, yeah, sure. I guess you could say that, but it doesn't. It doesn't say that the states are allowed to tax the individual man or woman, okay? It can tax businesses, right? If you're doing any kind of business, okay? So if you're doing like a business or something, it can tax that, but it can't go and get money right out of your pocket directly. It says it right there. Okay, so that's our 16th Amendment. So what they've been doing is they've been playing this game where they get everyone to sign up to pay taxes and agree to do it. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to show you guys something, all right? This is an SS4. Okay, so this is a form to do to get an EIN number. All right, and I'm going to show you something on here. It is understood, okay, that Americans are actually non-resident aliens unless they become U.S. citizens or residents of the United States. Okay, you have to be a resident of the United States, or you have to be a U.S. citizen. Okay, and then here I'm gonna show you what they're talking about. So let me pull this up. 26 CFR 1.1-1. Okay. All right, so this is the Code of Federal Regulations, Income Tax on Individuals. And it says Section 1 of the code imposes an income tax on the income of every individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States, and to the extent provided by Section 871B or 877B on the income of a non-resident alien individual. Okay, so if you're not a citizen of the United States or a resident of the United States, then you would be considered a non-resident alien. Okay? When they talk about the code, they're talking about the IRS code. So what do they mean by United States? Okay, I love how they look at this definition they give us here. Fabulous definition. Very clear, concise, tells you absolutely nothing. Right? Nice, guys. Well, the term United States means the same thing as we defined it somewhere else. So go look there. Right? So yeah, we'll have to go look there because that's where they're telling us to go look. That's all right. Right? First of all, we're talking about person. Oh boy. All right, but let's go look at United States. The term United States, when used in a geographical sense. Now this is the thing, people kind of overlook this. When used in a geographical sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. Now, this right here is just telling us something right here. When used in the geographical sense. But what about when it's not used in the geographical sense? What do you mean? Right? So they won't tell you what it means when it's not being used in a geographical sense. But when it is, and they're talking about residency like United States, and then they say, okay, so someone will go, yeah, well, see, the United States means the states and the District of Columbia. But what's the definition of state? The term state shall be construed to include the District of Columbia. Now, don't let the word include fool you, because people think, oh, well, that also means the states. No, it doesn't. Include means like also, right? It's supposed to mean that. The way it means here is it means like with only what was mentioned. So since there was no states mentioned, it only is the District of Columbia. It's void of anything else. It would list all 50 states somewhere, right? But it doesn't, and it doesn't show that. So the state of, let's say like the state of New York, right? That's a federal enclave. It's actually considered the District of Columbia extension of New York, right? So it's a federal enclave located in New York. Okay, that one's in Albany. State of New York is located in Albany. Just to show you here, let's go to what's Dun and Bradstreet. And you'll see like these state ofs have addresses, which tells you that the entire land mass of the state is not the state of, but it's a very specific. What's going on with this? Doesn't want me to show you guys now, huh? Oh. Come on. Bradstreet, you hiding? Oh, it won't let me pull up the website. Oh, not shady at all, right? Not shady. All right. So that's our.
Nope, not shady at all.
I mean, Dun and Bradstreet. You'd think it'd come right up. It won't let me pull it up. So you're all my witnesses now. Everyone's my witness. All right. So, all right. Well, I can't show you there, but here, let's do this. Let's go state of New York address. Boy, there's just some politicians you look at and you just kind of, you get sick to your stomach. You know? She qualifies.
Yep, are we talking about the lizard people?
I'm just talking about the psychosis that we call governors in a lot of these states. Some states have good governors, not all. But yeah, here you go. Jeez, man, the Dun and Bradstreet thing not coming up. Anyway, we'll go back to what we're talking about with the taxes. It won't let me pull up the website. It's refusing the website to load on my computer. That's the problem. Okay. So some governments look the other way. Although the direction they're looking in is how are they going to fill their pockets? How are we going to fill our pockets? That's what all these politicians like to do. How are we going to fill our pockets today? That's why they're all freaking out about the whole USAID getting shut down, because that was like their money funneling scheme. You know? All right, so you have to be a citizen or resident of the District of Columbia in order for the taxes to apply to you. Okay, otherwise, you would be considered a non-resident alien. Okay, here's their amazing definition. Oh, that clears it up, doesn't it? What's a non-resident alien? It's a non-resident alien. Oh, great, thank you. I was looking up the word defenestration, and it says defenestration means the act of defenestrating. I go, well, that cleared that up, didn't it? By the way, that just means to throw something out of a window. You didn't know. But it's like you can't get any worse of a definition than when you use the word to define the word. What does the mean? The means the. Yeah. Well, what are they trying to hide? So here, we'll show you. It's in here, non-resident alien. Okay. Now we're gonna mute that out because there's
Wait,
noise.
Joe, you just said that defenestration means throwing something out of a window. That actually tracks because fenêtre is the meaning of window in French. So
Yeah. Well,
defenestration,
it came from a French. It happened in France. There was a whole thing that happened in France where people were throwing stuff out of windows, and it became such a thing. They just made a word for it. They're like, oh yeah, defenestration. Yeah.
yeah, fenêtre is window in French. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'll show you. Defenestration. See? I know English. The act of throwing someone or something out of a window. I don't recommend this. All right, but yeah, that's what it means. It's really cool when you know English. It comes in handy. All right, so an individual is a non-resident alien if such individual is neither a citizen of the United States nor a resident of the United States within meaning of subparagraph A. So they're telling you that they're specifically referring to the District of Columbia. Okay, so this is a territorial jurisdictional issue. Okay, and because of that, it falls under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution of the United States. Right? We're going to go to it. Article 1, Section 8, because this is the territorial jurisdiction, and then Clause 17. Right? To exercise, I'm going to mute you out because you're making background noise. But you can always unmute if you have something to say. The exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may, by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of government of the United States and exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislator of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Okay, so they're telling you right there, okay, the founding fathers put this in the Constitution for a reason. It is to limit the territorial jurisdiction of the federal government. Okay, it is to limit the territorial jurisdiction of Congress. So they can only exercise their jurisdiction within 10 square miles. Okay, the legislation only applies there. When Congress writes something like anything in Title 26, okay, it has to be within the 10 square miles that they're referring to. Okay, like when this happened, of course, I mean, at the time, there was no District of Columbia yet, right? But they knew they were going to hash out a portion of land somewhere just for the federal government. That was always the intended purpose, right? And I see all these people go, "Oh, we got to make DC a state." Shut up! You don't even know what you're talking about. Don't talk, right? Like those people drive me nuts. Oh, we should make DC a state. Like, guys, no, you don't do that. It's not supposed to be. All right. It's supposed to be federal territory exclusively and only. It's not supposed to become a state. All right. You're gonna disrupt things when you do that. All right. You will create problems by doing that. So just if you're one of those people that think that DC should become a state, go read the Constitution again. Go look at territorial jurisdiction and understand what you're talking about before you go into any more of these conversations. Because people who I can't stand those kinds of arguments are ridiculous. All right. Anyway, so they're telling you, and per the Constitution, they can't exercise any kind of legislation outside of the District of Columbia, and that holds true right here. And they're telling you that. So yes, since you're you're non-resident alien, and look, the SS4 form, when you go apply for an EIN, it will tell you. This form shows you that they consider everyone to be a non-resident alien. Okay, until you sign like a W-4 or a 1040, you do any of those forms without saying that you're a non-resident alien, you're agreeing to being a U.S. citizen and residing in the District of Columbia. All right. Now, where is it? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, it's got to be in here somewhere. Non-resident. Here it is. Okay. Now on box 15, right? Now every company is a withholding agent, right? Because every company withholds funds out of your check every week, right? So it says first date wages or annuities were paid. If applicant is a withholding agent, enter date income will first be paid to non-resident alien. They consider everyone non-resident alien. They know you are. You're not asserting that on the paperwork though, so they get away with it. Okay? So this is the kind of games they're playing. If people pay attention, they can see, oh, wait a second, that only applies. But, and I know someone's going to go, but I'm a citizen of the United States. Are you? I mean, if you are, you it's by contract. Okay? And we could talk about that too. Okay. Let's go 14th Amendment, right? Because now we have all these 14th Amendment experts floating around the internet. Whereas like a year ago, no one even read the 14th Amendment. So first thing, let me just qualify that the 14th Amendment is invalid on its face. Okay, if we go down to Section 4, okay, it says the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payments of pensions and bounties for services as suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. Well, what's that? That's a violation of your First Amendment right to free speech, right? They're telling you you can't question the validity of the public debt. Okay, can't question it. Well, and this is how it works. If one piece of legislation is unconstitutional, it makes the entire thing unconstitutional. So just by that little piece right there, it's telling you the whole 14th Amendment is unconstitutional just by that. But the fact is that this also is an indicator that when they wrote this 14th Amendment, that they were telling you that they knew what they were doing when they created this 14th Amendment lower class citizen, okay? That they knew that this lower class citizen didn't have rights, wasn't going to have rights. That's why they said this. So our US citizens, our federal citizens don't have free speech. So they can't question the public debt. Okay? And also, we're going to give them due process of law. Why would they stick that in there if they didn't know what kind of situation they were creating? Because the Fifth Amendment already gives you due process of law. You already have due process of law under the Fifth Amendment. So they're telling you that these new class of citizens did not have the Bill of Rights to their advantage. They don't have First Amendment rights. They don't have Fifth Amendment rights. Okay? They're telling you right here. I mean, they're making it very obvious if you know what to look for, that these people don't have those rights. Okay? So under the 14th Amendment, you don't have the rights. Now you do now to some degree because of the due process clause, right? That's in here. And they're saying that they're going to protect the people from the state. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay, nor deny to any person within jurisdiction equal protections of the law. Now, I've seen guys use this to win court cases, the 14th Amendment. Okay. I'm not going to invalidate that, but it does create this other problem. See, as a U.S. citizen can only bring civil charges, okay, under the Civil Rights Act. It's a big loss of power, okay, because what they're saying is that you don't have the same authority that the government has, okay. The government has more rights than you in that sense, according to this, according to the doctrine of the civil rights, right? If we look at that here, if we look at U.S. Code 42, civil rights. And a lot of people cite this, and as of right now, this is the only thing that we really have, right? Equal rights under law. All persons within the jurisdiction of the United States. What's that? That's 14th Amendment. Shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, right? And the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property as enjoyed by the white citizens. And shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and exactions of every kind, and to no other. All right, so that's our equal rights. Okay. You can bring damages, okay, which we're not going to get into all that. But and then this one, and this right here, this is a telltale of who the 14th Amendment was written for. Because it says right here, all citizens of the United States, all citizens of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory as enjoyed by white citizens thereof to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property. So who is the citizens of the United States? You see what they've done here? Okay. It's just US citizens are very specific people. Or not even people, persons. Because they don't say people, they say persons. Look, see, all persons. Right? And who does the government get its authority from? Not persons. It gets authority from the people. Right? So these people don't, these persons here, as it says here, do not have a right or authority, which is why they can stomp on their rights, but they give them due process. Okay? You see what they're doing here? Okay? Stopping their First Amendment right. This is why all these companies can get away. You're right. White doesn't mean Caucasian. They are different. Which, you know what? Let's pull that up. That's a good point someone made on TikTok. White don't mean Caucasian. And that's a big thing. So I'm gonna show you guys this. All right. Even if this means I have to get kicked off of TikTok, getting banned for sharing this information, but it's worth it because this is important, people. Okay. We're gonna talk about these terms. You know. Which some people are probably sensitive to, but look, you got to be tough. You want to be an American, you want to be free, you're going to have to deal with words you may not be comfortable with. Okay. I don't mean that somebody's racist or anything like that. It just means that these are the terms that we need to use. So, for the sake of education purposes. Because I'm always listed as Caucasian in all their stuff, and like when I see like my information like on the police stuff, I go, it says I'm Caucasian. They're like, yeah, you're Caucasian. I'm like, that's not what that means. Of course, I can't find it. Let's see.
I've always said other. Is that a good thing?
There it is. So they say right here. Well, I mean, I guess you could. So look, they say here. Come on. This is actually incorrect, but it says pertaining to the white race to which belong the greater part of European nations and those of Western Asia. Right? The term is inapplicable to denote families or stockings inhabiting Europe and speaking either so-called Aryan or Semitic languages. Right? So this is funny because if you look it up here, if we use a regular dictionary, you'll see it doesn't mean that. But here, let's see. Anyway, we'll go here now. Nope, too far. Yeah, I'm mixed, so when they ask me, I say I just check everything. Since I'm like really mixed. I'm like okay, there you go. Free white persons, right? Referred to the Naturalization Act 1870, right? Meaning all persons belonging to the European races, then commonly counted as white, and their descendants, including such whites in other countries which have immigrated. If you look up what Caucasian is, it's actually more like a Middle Eastern thing. This includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with people of Celtic or Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. It includes the Magyars, Lapes, and Finns, and the Basques and the Albanians. It includes a mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav, and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. It does not mean Caucasian race, see? Aryan race or Indonesia-European, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic. You see how this is a very confusing, and they're doing this stuff on purpose, right? Because they're saying, like, here's the lower class forms that we can go after, okay? But they won't go after these people. And this is like a lot of the Moors bring this up for a good point because it does inject them into being one of the free white persons, which they will never categorize you at. Right? Never. They'll never categorize you anyone like that. Okay? They won't do it because then they don't have any jurisdiction over you. All right. Dravidian, Semitic, Mongolian people who never Syrian of Semitic birth and descendant will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person. See? They won't do it.
Wow, this is so interesting. My father's name derives from the Basque region. And I looked up the heraldry and the last name and everything. Oh my gosh, this is so interesting what it says about the Basques in this free white person. Thanks, Joe.
Mm. So yeah, I mean this. And by the way, this applies to virtually everyone. Okay, when we're talking about white, we're not talking about a skin color. Okay, this is the deception. Because if you look at the list of all the different people they've included under free white persons, I mean, Greek, Slavic, Latin, right? Uh, Phoenician, North African, right? Uh, they're not, you wouldn't call them white if you saw them on the street. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be like, oh, that's a white dude. You wouldn't say that. It has nothing to do with your skin color, right? They talk about the Moors, right? Moorish inhabitants, okay? They don't have complexion like mine, you know. But this is the deception. See, this is the big scam that they run on people. So when they're talking about citizens in the United States, who are they talking about? Right? Because they're talking here, they're talking about the white citizens here, and they give you a big list of who it is. Okay, so who are they talking about in our Civil Rights Act here? Who are they talking about? A very specific group of people. And that's all, that's the only people it applies to, which, by the way, none of those people are alive today. None of them. Okay. Because it was only supposed to be for the newly freed slaves and their children. That was it. That was the cutoff, was their kids. So if your parents were part of that, the slavery, right, or were the slaves, then yeah, you would qualify. But I don't think there's anyone alive today. I don't think that's even possible. Yeah, I think we're too far in the future. So it doesn't really apply to anybody. And so it's all a deception. It's just deception they're going to run with. Okay. But You can contract to be one, right? That's the thing. You can always contract. Who wants to sign a contract, right? And this does bring us to the state national thing someone was asking about earlier. Uh, this is what we're talking about. Not, and it's called national. It's not really called state national. State national is kind of like a slang term, but the actual term is just called national. The reason why I would say state national is just so people know which one I'm talking about. I think this is the bottom rung. Okay, like this should be, like I know a lot of people say this or that or whatever, but I honestly think that the best first step in all of this is to first update the passport and get this corrected about being a US citizen, and just update the passport so that way you're a national, not a US citizen. Okay, and this is what they're talking about. So this is before, see, the US citizen is a national of the United States. That's our 14th Amendment citizen. That's A. 22A. 22B is an American Samoan. But this right here is the state citizen. That's the citizenship that we had before there was the 14th Amendment. That's 21 right there. So national. Now, they did that because there was all these court cases about state citizenship, and the fact that they didn't have jurisdiction over state citizens or anything like that, and it was a big problem for them. So what they did was they hid it by reterming it national and using the nationality of the state rather than citizenship of the state, right? To hide it that way. So they kind of just bounced it back, and they do mean nationality of a state. See, it even says it right there, right? Which falls under, there's 50 categories of nationalities, right? So that's what they did, and I honestly think, because this is really interesting. What has come up with me over the years, like helping people, is that when they run into situations, if they have not corrected their passport and didn't, or if they did and didn't use an explanatory statement, it becomes a little bit trickier to handle some certain things, right? So I found that the best first step is to go correct the passport and use an explanatory statement to do that. When you do the explanatory statement, okay, now you have an affidavit, which is evidence that could be admissible in any court of law in America, that proves that you're not a U.S. citizen. All right. And when the Department of State doesn't rebut it, guess what? Now you have an unrebutted affidavit on file with the Department of State, and you can always contact them, get a FOIA request, and get a certified copy of that affidavit. And that's admissible evidence in court. The courts can't rule over that. Okay. This puts you into a very powerful position, right? In some states, they won't run the passport. Like in New Jersey, they will not run the passport here. They refuse to do it. So the problem that people run into is you correct the passport and then you get pulled over by a cop and you get tickets, right? Yeah, you can get a passport somewhere else if you're born somewhere else, as long as you've naturalized here. If you're naturalized here, then yeah, you can. If you're not, then you can't. Um, but yeah, so the reason is because you may have corrected the record with the federal government, but the DMV still has this other agreement on file with you, right? This contract. Yeah, some people can't get the cops won't do it. Some cops refuse to do it because they know what's going to happen if they run it. They don't want to because they want to be like, in charge. And some cops don't know how to run the passport. Like I had a cop in court. I said, well, I gave him my passport. Did you run it? He goes, no. I said, why? He goes, I don't know how to do that. I said, oh, you don't know how to run the passport. He goes, that's right. It's like, I don't have a way to do it. So they actually limit the police to only using the DMV system, right? Which the DMV, I don't see why the DMV is like the source of information for the police, because if they want to get your identity, why do they go to the Motor Vehicle Commission? Motor vehicle? Who are you? Well, the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, is telling you who I am. Or are you just trying to get a contract? You're just trying to see if I have a contract with with this department that you have access to. Imagine if you had nothing in the DMV system at all. How would they be able to find you? They would have no record of you. You'd be a mystery. They would have to run your passport and obtain the information through the passport. They would be forced to do it. But that's the problem, is that virtually everybody's got something in the DMV somewhere. So, and those they'll share those records across state lines. All right. So it's pretty nuts what they'll do. So but
Hey
I
Joe,
think, yeah,
what form can I use to fix my passport? Because I forgot to send the explanatory form, but I did use the Copper Moonshine's website instructions to do the rest of the paperwork.
there's no form for that. You'd have to go either redo the passport or you just mail them an explanatory statement.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Sounds
Like
good.
I before I even did the passport, I just wrote them a letter and I mailed it to the Secretary of State of the United States. Right. I just sent it to him, and then I said, go ahead and rebut it. You got 30 days, and he didn't, so he's not going to. What are they going to do? He's So that would be the way to do it. But if you did the copper moonshine still method, I mean, it probably got changed. The only problem is that you don't have an affidavit, on file. Now, the reason why he did that was because in Arkansas, where he's at, they will call the cops on you and have you arrested if you try to do the explanatory statement with the passport application. Super illegal, but they don't care. The whole state is like in rebellion against using the having an explanatory statement, which is insanely illegal. Write your own explanatory statement. Don't use someone else's. Okay, all right. Don't. This is on TikTok. Someone's saying I'm gonna use this guy's. Don't use anybody's. Write your own. Do the study. Learn the information. Okay. Your freedom doesn't come from someone else's explanatory statement. Your freedom doesn't come from somebody else's paperwork. It comes from your ability to understand the information. Right? If you go and get someone's explanatory statement and send it in, and then you have to go to court and you send in a copy of that explanatory statement to the court, and they go, explain it to me. And you're like, well, I mean, but the 14th Amendment, it says, well, everyone's beholden to the 14th Amendment. Actually, no. No, it's not. The slaughterhouse cases tell you that it was only intended for the slaves and their children. Okay, the Susan B. Anthony court case says the same thing. It says that not all people born in the United States, would be considered federal citizens. Some of them could be considered only state citizens and only citizens of the state. Yeah, and they call you that, and you say, well, what's the legislative definition of sovereign citizen, please? Please provide the legislative definition. Right? They don't have one, so they can't provide it. So they have to take it out. Oh, what does that mean? Where's that from? What's the legislative definition of sovereign citizen? Right? So but that's the only issue that I have with the copper moonshine stills is there's no explanatory statement. But like I said, I would highly recommend not to use someone else's paperwork. Just write your own. Okay? Because if it comes from you, it's genuine and real. Okay? When it comes from somebody else, you're just hoping that they got it right. But when it comes from you, you know what's true. And only you have that truth. Your truth is your truth. No one can take that away from you. Right?
And
So
you get it notarized first before sending in your affidavit?
absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely get it notarized. If you don't get it notarized, then it wouldn't be considered admissible in court if it's not notarized. So plus it don't, also I mean there's a whole bunch of things with that. Like one thing is that if you do it under penalty of perjury, right? It's pretty strong. It has to be rebutted under the same way, under the same circumstances. So someone would have to argue your paperwork under the same kind of penalty of perjury and have it signed by a notary as well. Which I don't think they're going to want to do, because that's like you could go to jail for like 5 years for perjury. So, but if you want to, I don't think people are going to risk their ass for you. You know what I mean? I'm going to get you.
Now, going back to the tax situation, um, I had a successful LLC back in the day, and I opened other LLCs, but then the first one went under, and I got audited by the state. How can I look up a lien or information on that? Because now they're charging me an insane amount of sales tax and all that stuff.
Who is?
The state. So I received a whole bunch of letters from them saying I owe like 80,000 or $100,000 in state taxes when my business was not doing well anymore. So then I started going through all this information, and I found out that we can be state nationals, and now I'm overwhelmed with information and I don't know how to fix the first problem.
Yeah, well, I would just ask them to validate that that's true and valid debt. You know, um, since it's an LLC, it could be. The LLC is kind of like that's why I stay away from them, because when you have a situation like yours, it's kind of hard to get around it. Because you've already contracted with the state that you would pay them this tax through the LLC. So you got a bit of an issue there with that one. There could be ways to discharge it and stop it, but we, we couldn't have that conversation here. It'd be too private of a conversation to have between TikTok and YouTube.
Yes, sir. I'll reach out to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we get into some sensitive information I don't think you want to share. But yeah, there could be some other issues, like we'd have to look at that and qualify what was actually true. So the first thing I would probably do, what I would do is I would write a letter to the state just asking for clarification on that and giving them a list of things to answer. Um, Depending on what they claim was owed, from what time period, what location, get them to prove all that stuff. If they can prove all those things, then you have to ask them to validate the contracts that you had with them. And then once they can do that, then you really kind of got to look at, like, then you have to look at, like, how could you remedy this without having to pay it out of pocket, and, like, keep burying yourself in the ground, with the state. So, um, we're on Telegram. So you're gonna find it through Telegram is what you're gonna do. I put the link in. So there's the link for Telegram. I'm gonna pin this comment. It was pinned before. It's only pinned for like a few seconds. What the heck? So go to that pinned comment. That's the Telegram link. Go to Telegram. There's a Zoom link. Then join on Zoom, and you'll be on. We can talk. But you know what I'll do? I'll share the YouTube channel. Wait, yeah, I'll drop that in Telegram too. Why not? So let's talk about. All right, there you go. All right. Oh, we got like this weird thing going on. Okay. All right. What else is going on today? Non-resident aliens. Everybody here non-resident alien?
Yes.
All right. That makes 2 of us. 3.
I wanted to ask a question since you brought up the DMV. I've seen it somewhere in one of the discussions that the DMV is actually a PMA. Could you talk to us about that, if
Well, I
that's
mean,
true?
I I don't know. I don't think so. Pick what state?
Well, I thought it was like the DMV, all of them, all the
Well,
states. It's actually under the jurisdiction of being a PMA.
no, I don't think so. I
No?
mean,
Okay.
it could be. The so in each state they're called something different. Like in Washington, it's called the Department of Licensing, right? In New Jersey, it's called the Motor Vehicle Commission. In Ohio, it's called the BMV, Bureau of Motor Vehicles, or something like that. So it's different in different states, you know. So it might be under some kind of like private foundation or something like that, but I don't know. We'd have to pick a state and look. No, no one wants to pick a state.
Oh, okay. Well, since I brought it up, if that's the rabbit hole you want to go down, I didn't want to interrupt your flow if you wanted to talk about other stuff. But
I mean,
I'm,
I thought we satisfied the tax thing. Can't be a direct tax. They can't take it out of your pay unless you're dealing with a withholding agent. You're a non-resident alien. Under the 16th Amendment, they can only really tax the states. Yeah. When did this government mean anything? Yeah, they don't. The judge. Oh yeah. See, they hate that. See, once you do this thing with the name, oh man, it freaking it burns them, and they get burned by that one. I tell you, because they have ownership over the last name, right? Because we're dealing with a feudal system, right? Um, I'm gonna show you guys this. We don't talk about the assumed name enough. You know, I've talked about it over the years, but just never enough. We need to really talk about this thing because this is one of the big frauds that they're perpetrating upon the people is they're using the name, right? And it comes from this whole feudal system, right? Uh, issue. So let's look up feudal. We're almost there. Feudal. Let's see. Feudal law. An estate in land held of a superior on condition of rendering him services. Okay, so we're going to start with that concept right there, right? An estate in land held of a superior on condition of rendering him services. So right there, that tells you that a feudal system and a republic are not the same system. There's someone who is a superior to someone else. Under our Constitution, that has never been the case. It cannot be the case under the Constitution. Okay, but what has the government done with that document? They used that 14th Amendment to kind of stuff it into a bag somewhere so no one can see it anymore, and created a feudal system. Okay, the slaughterhouse cases very clearly explain how that works. Okay, so an inheritable right to the use and occupation of lands held on condition of rendering services to the lord or proprietor, who himself retains the property in the lands. Sound like our car situation today? Your property with your home, right? Someone else owns your house, right? You're always paying, even if you don't have a mortgage, you're always paying for that house because it don't really belong to you. I own a house. And how much you paying property taxes? Oh, I pay this much. Oh, you don't own it then, do you? What happens if you stop paying your property tax? They take my house. Well, then it's not yours. Stop calling it your house. It's not yours. right? You have a right to use and occupy the lands held on the condition of rendering services. This is what we call property taxes to the lord or proprietor, right? Who himself pertains to property in the lands, right? So this is like some kind of trust relationship here, isn't it? Right? In this sense, the word is the same as feudum, fief, and fee. Whatever. All right. So feudal is pertaining to feuds or fees relating to or the growing out of the feudal system or feudal law. Okay, having the quality of a feud as distinguished from a lodial. Now, this right here is telling us that because this is feudal, we do live in a feudal system today, currently, right? You do something with the car, they take the car away from you if they don't like what you did, right? You don't pay your property taxes, they take the house away from you. It's not yours. So we do live in a feudal type of system. Same thing with children, right? They don't like how you feed your kids or that you didn't give them shots. What do? They take them away from you, right? Oh, you got to do this to your kids. I'm not doing that to my kids. Well, then we're taking them. Well, they weren't yours then, were they? See the sick crap going on? And people think they're free. I'm free. Look at all the permits and licenses that prove that I'm free. Yeah, sure, right. All right, so that's feudal. Now we can see if we look and really evaluate what this term means and how our system is, the system that we're operating within works, we can see this is exactly what's going on. Okay. Feudal actions, feudal courts, right? An ancient name for real actions or such as concern of real property only. In the 12th century, a lord had the right to hold a court for his tenants, feudal courts. All right. Oh, boy. All right. So feudal law is the body of jurisprudence relating to feuds, the real property law of the feudal system. The law anciently regulating the property relations of lord and vassal. Okay, vassal is like a type of serf, right? It's one who is in a voluntary servitude condition. Okay. Voluntary servitude, and the creation, incidence, and transmission of feudal estates. All right, a lot of the stuff that we're going, from the Roman Empire, a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with relates to this on the level of the 13th Amendment, right? Which is the involuntary servitude and slavery are illegal unless duly convicted of a crime, but voluntary servitude is still legal. Okay, they just use deception to get everyone to volunteer into servitude. Okay, they do it through property tax, like buying your home, the mortgage, right? The mortgage is a big one because you're paying a bank for like 25, 30 years for a house that if you could have built yourself in way less that time and had it free and clear. Right? You see? It's all deception. The cars. Okay, the children. Okay, you're like, we had our dude here. He was making money with his company. They want to take the money from him. Wasn't that his efforts? They're going to take away his efforts for his survival. I don't get how they get away with this stuff. It's like, it's psychotic to me. Like, oh, you made money? Well, because you made money, now you have to give it to us. Oh, you don't have that money anymore. Well, could you use it on things like, like your family and survival? Well, now you're going to owe us big time, and we're going to put penalties on that. Because you didn't have money to pay us, we're going to charge you more money for that. So that way,
The mob.
huh?
That sounds just like the mob.
It's psychotic.
We all watch The Sopranos, we know, and The Godfather, right? It's the
Uh,
mob.
I never saw any of those.
Okay.
I know, I'm one of those guys. I saw Casino. All right, that was a good movie.
Okay, and I didn't. Now we're even.
All right, good. All right, we're even. We can shake hands on that one. All right, so so this is our feudal system, the body of laws and usage constituting the feudal law was originally customarily and unwritten, but a compilation was made in the 12th century called Feudum Constitutus, which has formed the basis of later digests. The feudal law prevailed over Europe from the 12th to the 14th century and was introduced in England at the Norman Conquest, where it formed the entire basis of law of real property until comparatively modern times. Yeah, they're trying to cover their asses, but they're like, yeah, we're still doing that to this day. Like, please, like, tell me they're not doing that. Survivals of the feudal law to the present day so affect and color that branch of jurisprudence as to require certain knowledge of the feudal law in order to the perfect comprehension of modern tenures and rules of real property law. It still works out to this day, right? It's never changed. They just kind of change like words and stuff like that. But go look at your mortgage and it'll tell you that you're listed as a tenant because it ain't yours. All right. The equivalent of citizen under feudal system, that's feudal possession. Citizen was what do you call it? Like it was a little like a procedure, or it was something that was done when like someone gave land to somebody else. They cut out like a little thing of land, and the guy would he would, I think he put like a toothpick or like a little stick in there. Yeah, it was like a stick, like a little stick in there, and he would say, "Hey, I'm buying this land," and then the witnesses would sign it and say that the deed was done. That's where the term deed comes from too, from the Ciasan thing, right? So that was called a deed. And then after a while, instead of doing the little plot, the little piece of land and putting the little stick in the land and selling the land over to the guy, they just did the deed. The deed is done. That's where the term deed comes from. All right, that's how they sold land back in those days. Okay, but now it's just by deed. But that also tells you, because we still use deeds and stuff like that, that we're still in this feudal possession situation, right? Now, the name on that deed, the top name is the real owner, right? And it's usually the state. So our feudal system, right, is a political and social system which prevailed throughout Europe through 11th, 12th, 13th centuries, and is supposed to have grown out of particular use as a policy of the Teutonic nations, which were German nations, who overran the continent after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, as developed by the exigencies of their military domination, and possibly furthered by notions taken from Roman jurisprudence. Okay, this is what our buddy over here was saying in TikTok. It was introduced into England in its completeness by William, I guess that's first AD 1085, though it may exist in a rudimentary form among the Saxons before the conquest. All right. It's not really talking more about, it's just talking more about the history here, so we don't have to get into that. We could, but it would be good to kind of skip over all that. All right, the tenures of real estate under feudal systems such as knight service, associates, vianage, these are feudal tenures. Okay, this is akin to or similar to our principal agent relationship. Okay, the laws of agency fall under feudal tenures. Okay, knight service, associate, vianage. Feudalism, the feudal system, and the aggregate of feudal principles and usages. So they use this thing right through deeds. Like here, let's look at let's look at vassage. Let's go look at that. This term vassage. You know, when you get these guys, by the way, you get like these dudes on TikTok. Sorry, I got to do a little puzzle piece thing on TikTok here. You get these lawyers on TikTok going, "Don't read these archaic books. Oh, those old Black Laws dictionaries are no good." Well, look at all the history we can pull out of here. Right? Isn't that amazing? What are these guys trying to get you to do? By the way, this book was released in the 1960s. It ain't that old. Okay? So when they tell you stop reading these old books, you know, they're trying to, okay, vassal. In feudal law, a feudal tenant or grantee, okay, This is what this is. Now look at, we're learning a little bit about grantor grantee here. The grantor is the creditor. The grantee is the debtor. Okay, see what kind of situation we're coming into here? All this stuff comes to light now. Creditor, debtor, feudal system, vassal, right? A feudal tenant. I'm living here, but it's your property. I have to pay you money. The holder of a fief on a feudal tenure and by the obligation of performing feudal services. The correlative term was lord. So you have a lord and you have a vassal. So who is the lord here? All right, we live in an oligarchy, like a feudal system oligarchy is what we live in, right? So it's like a group, it's a small group of people that run everything, but they keep it all quiet. All right, the vassal himself might be lord of some other vassal. See? So you have different ranks. Boop, 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 boop. Now, under a republic, you don't have ranks of people, right? Everyone is equal. All men are equal. And government derives its authority from the consent of the people. And we do that through elections. We're supposed to be electors, not voters. So they even lessen that. They like, oh, electors are up here and you're voter down here. Right? In after times, this word was used to signify a species of slave who owed servitude and was in a state of dependency on a superior lord. Okay? Now, what is that? A state of dependency on the Lord. Please do something for me and I will owe you my servitude. Help me. Benefits, right? You want a benefit? You're going to owe a debt. I want a benefit. Give me the benefits. What do they call benefits nowadays? Social Security? That's like a benefit, right? Going to court's a benefit. Right? Waive your benefits. Waive the benefits and see what happens. Okay. So that's a vassal. So vassalage, all this stuff. There's another one, valine. So we're going to go into that too. So we have the vassal, then we have where is it? I think I passed it. Oh, it's I-E. Mm-hmm. Just making sense to everybody so far?
Yeah, I did see VEIN on the left column earlier, but is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm looking for Villain, but I think
Oh,
yeah, I think it was up there. Everything, they make everything real hard to find sometimes. This is probably just me. Just getting too excited looking for something. Mm-hmm. Vagrant. Wow, I can't find this word at all. Oh boy. Well, I'm gonna have a problem now. Now I can't find it, and it's probably right here in my face somewhere. Vassal, vassalage, vaudeville, Velline. No, can't find it. L. Villine. No, it's supposed to be Villine. Villine. I don't know. I'm losing it today, people. Sorry. Yeah, Val. I think you're spelling it wrong too, though. I'm trying. Villine. Well, we got villain, village. Oh, there it is. I found it. Yay! It's Villein. Ein, yeah. Okay, so Villine is a person attached to a manor who was substantially in the condition of a slave, who performed the base and servile work upon the manor for the Lord, and was, in most respects, a subject of property belonging to him. Okay, so this would be a certain type of vassal. This is one who's works within the home, within the manor. Okay, and then they have of a lien who is annexed to the person of the Lord and transferable by deed from one owner to another. Now, on a side note, let's talk about something totally disrelated now. If you were born, let's say you were born in New York, right? So you get a New York birth certificate, right? Now, let's say your parents move out to, let's say you move to Texas, okay? And then when you're like 18, you want to go get a driver's license. And then you go submit your New York State birth certificate into the DMV over in Texas, and you go and get a driver's license. Well, what did you just do there? You just transferred your birth certificate from New York to Texas, and now you can get Texas stuff, right? Totally just related to this, though, right? Because TikTok will ban me if I say otherwise. Oh, man. All right, but that's a Villine and Gross. They had a deed attached to that vassal. Not vessel, vassal. Okay. A Villine annexed to the manor of land, a serf. All right. So Villine services, right? Base services such as Villines performed. They were not, however, exclusively confined to Villines, since they might be performed by freemen without impairing their free condition. Oh, you see? So they could have so they're telling you, yes, a free man could still do it without impairing their free condition. So there's a way to provide those services as a free man without impairing their free condition. But yeah, they're not going to let that fly today. Now, we've done a couple things and they'll be like, you can't do that. Well, are you telling me that I'm not a free man? Right? All right. In feudal and Old English law, a species of tenure in which the services to be rendered were certain and determinable or determinate, but were of base or servile nature, not suitable to a man of free and honorable rank. Okay, this was also called privileged vianage to distinguish it from pure vianage, in which the services were not certain, but the tenant was obliged to do whatever he was commanded. Okay, that sounds very much like today, doesn't it? Oh, you have to do this. You have to. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. They tell you everything. Everything you do, you have to do everything a certain way. It has to be done that way. There's no you go to the DMV and you sign you want to have the driver's license, let's say, right? And you're like, well, I want to do this, but I want to preserve my rights, so I'm going to sign it without prejudice. They come back and say, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? I can't impair my free condition. I can't keep it. I have to impair my free condition in order to have a driver's license. What are they telling you you are? Oh, you have to waive all your rights if you want to have a driver's license. Oh, I have to waive my rights. You're not a government agency. The government is created, Our government, a republic form of government, was created to uphold and protect our rights. Okay, that was their entire purpose, was to protect our rights. They put the Bill of Rights out there to show these are the rights that you must protect. And what have they done? They stop you in the middle of the road without any injured party, Fourth Amendment violation. They take your car, Fifth Amendment violation, right? They make you give your driver's license and other information over without any kind of crime. That's a Fourth Amendment violation, right? They try to make you answer questions, okay, without counsel there, and they'll force you to answer them, right? That's a Sixth Amendment violation, okay. And then they lock you up and they throw you in jail, and you're sitting in jail over what? Because you didn't use a blinker, because your registration expired, because you didn't have insurance on the car. You didn't pay for this service, now you get to go to jail. Right? Then they make you waive your rights. The cops say, oh, okay, well, sign this piece of paper here saying you're going to waive all your rights that we just read to you. That's not a government agency. That's actually treason. Okay? And they're not acting as a government agency when they're doing that. What they're acting as is a third-party corporation who's trying to utilize the system to drum up money for the corporation. Okay, the cops are unaware of this. I'm not going to say that it's all the cops' fault. Okay, they don't know. They're just doing their job. They're just trained. You know, Nuremberg trials teach us everything, right? Well, go study the Nuremberg trials, get a better idea how that works. I was following orders. Okay, right? The training says everything, doesn't it? All right, so Valine Sociage, right? Talking about that. Our tenant was obligated to whatever he was commanded, right? So they tell you to do something, you got to do it. Villanage, a servile type of tenure belonging to lands or tenements whereby the tenant was bound to do all such services as the Lord commanded or were fit for a Valine to do. Right? This is rough. We're very much like this today. Right? Like our country does operate in this sense. Well, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to put on a mask. You have to wear a mask. You're going to have to go get all the shots. You need to do that. It's very important. Your children, they have to. But we're not forcing you, but you still have to. Okay? What else you got to do? You have to have this. You need to buy this service. Buy all these services from these insurance companies that you don't want to deal with. So we're going to force you to pay for their service because you have to. Right? Because these insurance companies won't make any money unless we make legislation that forces you and compels you to buy their service, because no one wants to pay for insurance because it's a ripoff, and we know that. And now you're going to pay for it because we're forcing you to. You have to do it. Right? That's the problem with insurance, is that they actually made laws to tell you that you have to buy a service. That's a violation of the 13th Amendment. Right? I said, well, no, it's not, because you get to choose which service provider you want. What internet or what insurance provider you want. I don't want any insurance provider. How about that? No, you have to. So you're telling me I am compelled now against my will to go buy a product or a service that I don't want. That's a violation of the 13th Amendment. Okay. Pure villanage. A base tenure where a man holds upon terms of doing whatsoever is commanded of him, nor knows in the evening what is to be done in the morning, and is always bound to an uncertain service. That sounds like America, don't it? Oh man, that's well, I don't know what they're going to want me to do next. You know, like our friend here is like, I don't know what to do because they're trying to come after him for money. He's like, well what are they going to do? What are they going to do to me, man? Vilenius judgment, a judgment which deprived one of his libertas lex, where he was discredited and disabled as a juror or witness, forfeited his goods and chattels and lands for life, wasted the lands, razed the houses, rooted up the trees and committed his body to prison. Has become obsolete? Yeah, I don't think so. Don't sound obsolete to me. Don't they do that to people? Throw a guy in jail and they take all his properties and they do whatever they want with it, right? It's like freaking Galactus that comes over and just eats up a planet. It's like the government. They see like, oh, let's go after this guy, throw him in jail, and then they're gonna just like devour all his property. Oh, it's ours now. I don't know. It's like, we're just taking over. Now let's go look at this surf term now too. Surf is an important term in this. Surf. And not like surfing, because that's fun, but not that kind of. This is not the fun one. But the good thing is that we don't have to do this, right? There is a solution to all this. So a serf in feudal polity, a class of persons whose social condition was servile and were bound to labor and onerous duties at the will of their lords. They differed from slaves only in that they were bound to their native soil instead of being the absolute property of a master. Now, what do we got here? A little different. They're bound to their native soil instead of being the absolute property of a master. Those villeins were absolute property, but the serf was not. And this here, you have this condition of servitude, but it's more voluntary. Right? They're bound to the labors and duties at the will of their lords. I need you to do this. You put up a fence in your house, right, in your backyard, because you don't want like your kids going running off or your dog running away into the woods. And you put up a fence, and then you get like a fine from this town saying you didn't pay for a permit. Mind your business. I'm not paying you. Well, what are they saying? They're saying, oh, no, that's our property. If you want to build something on our property, you got to get permission. I don't need your permission to put up a fence in my backyard. I don't need your permission to do any of those things, but they're telling you that you do. I don't even know whether these guys got the balls to do that shit. Like it's beyond me how these guys will tell you that you need to get permission to fix a wall in your house. Oh, you want to take a wall down your house? Yeah, you're going to need a permit for that. And I know there's going to be someone out there that's going to well, the permits are going to pay for the inspector to come and make sure the job was done good. All right. Well, maybe I don't give a shit if he comes and takes a look at the job. Maybe I can figure out for myself if the job was done right. Maybe I could do it my damn self. Right? Maybe I'll just get somebody that I trust will do a good job. That's not so hard, is it? So people always come up with these excuses. Why? Whoa, the permit paid for this and it does that. I don't give a shit. It's my house. If someone's going to do a shit job in my house, that's fine. Then, I can sue them in court for that. Right? That's what the courts are for. Right? Do a good job, I won't have to sue you. There you go. HOAs are shit. I hate them. Stay away from them. So someone's asking about that in TikTok. What do you think of HOAs? I would never sign an HOA agreement. Personally, I know some people do because they like there are some benefits, like your lawn gets cut for you and stuff like that. But then you gotta get on your knees for everything they tell you to do. You gotta do this. Oh yes, of course, master. Yeah, right. It turns into this servitude condition again. HOAs, that's what they are. Whoever runs the HOA is in charge of everybody. In charge of your home, all that stuff.
Yep, and I've heard that HOAs are also PMAs. It's like they make this shit up and they get to collect revenue. And it's actually not a government law.
No, but the courts will enforce HOA rules and regulations because it's a contract and you signed the contract. So I know a guy who lives in an HOA neighborhood and he never signed a HOA, and then they were like suing him. They were billing him for things that he was doing. And he's like, I'm not part of the HOA. He lived there before they had an HOA, right? And then when the HOA came in, like all the neighbors signed up, and he goes, "I'm not signing that." They're like, "Well, you're gonna have to," and he goes, "I don't have to do shit. I'm not doing it." And they basically, like they went after him, sued him, and then he's like, "What should I do?" I said, "Well, they're liable now. You don't have a contract with them. They don't have a contract with you, so sue them back for 3 times the amount." And he won, and they had to pay him 3 times what they were asking for, because that was what he demanded, since they were harassing him in his private capacity as a private citizen, right? And they were harassing him on a constant basis. They did things like walk into his home, which were, that's a Fourth Amendment violation. You can't walk into somebody's house. They would just walk into his house, start telling him he can't do this and that, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of my house!" It's like, "You're lucky I didn't shoot you," right? So that's why he won, and then they won't even look at his house anymore. They stay away from him.
Wow.
But yeah, that was a fun one, you know. All right. So, yep, irreparable harm. Uh, it was like a borderline like civil rights violations as well, but it was like damages is what we put it down. Irreparable harm and damages. And that's how he got paid. I think he got like about, because they wanted like $5,000 from him, and he got about 13,000 from them in total instead. So, yeah, don't mess with a guy who's going to stand on his rights and knows what he's doing, because it's going to hurt you. All right. All right. So, any questions? We guys understand what the feudal system is? We understand how the trap has been laid out?
Yes.
All right. So now we know that there's a deed attached to the lien, right? As a serf, it's kind of a similar thing. They're bound to it, kind of like a bond, like you're bonded, okay? But there's a way out, because as a serf, right, you are bound to your native soil instead of being absolute property of a master. You're not absolute property. So they have this little leeway, okay? And it's inside the passport application. The passport does all that stuff. That's where we get back to our, 8 U.S. code right here. Term national means a person owing permanently just to a state. Now, it's one of the people. Like, that's the problem, is they keep saying person, but they won't say people. They refuse to use the word people in this stuff. Only in certain instances will they use people. Okay. Um, See, persons. It's all persons. Officer, persons. Insane persons. The word insane, an insane person shall include every idiot, insane person. This, I think it would be anyone who is doing anything that would be considered to be contra survival would be an insane person. So if you're doing something that goes against survival in any aspect at all, that would be an insane person, right? Probably can't explain it very clearly on TikTok, because TikTok will ban me for explaining it, even though it's for educational purposes only or demonstrative purposes. Can't explain some contra survival activities, but you guys can probably come up with some. What would go against survival? That would make you insane to that degree, right? Doctor tells you you can't eat apples because you're allergic to apples, and you could die. And then you go home and eat an apple. That would be insane. Being wards of the court, yeah. All right. So now, but here's the beauty of this, is that through our Constitution, okay, uh, it says, "We the people of the United States," right, "do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And we are the posterity," right? This word posterity means like the future people, the people of that future, right? So it's the people. Like here, someone give me a state.
North Carolina.
Okay, North Carolina Constitution. This is where they hide it, people. They're going to hide it in here. So if we look at here, oh God, look what they said. All persons are created equal. What in the? But look what it says. We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to the Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations. So they're showing that God is the sovereign ruler of nations for the preservation of the American Union, the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledge our dependence upon Him for the continuance of those blessings to us and our posterity, due for the more security, certain security thereof, for the betterment of government, ordained and established this Constitution. So, very religious Constitution already. Didn't expect that. Okay. All political power is vested in and derived from the people. See, not persons. Do you think they did this on purpose? All persons are created equal. All political power is vested and derived from the people. All government of right originates from the people and is founded upon their will only and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. That's our North Carolina Constitution, right? But they're telling you that the people are the ones that have the power. Without that, without the people, the government has no authority or power. Okay? And all persons get to be equal because, this is under the 14th Amendment. So the persons get to have equal rights. But it says that the government gets its power from the people, not persons. Right? That's why 14th Amendment persons are considered subjects. They're serfs. But you have to correct the record. Are you a person or are you one of the people? And that's the solution. So they give you the solution. It's right inside your state constitutions. Let's do another state. This is fun, right?
New York. I have a quick question about the whole native soil thing in that definition. I
Okay.
was born in New York,
So was I.
so my passport says New York.
Yeah.
So this is going back to the point about the native soil and what you were saying about the passport. I'm on the
Yeah, that's
wanting to
right.
hear more how this clicks together.
So here it is. It says the serfs differed from slaves only in that they were bound to their native soil. That's your nationality. Okay. You can always revert to your nationality as one of the people of New York and become a New Yorker. And they don't write laws for New Yorkers. They write laws for citizens and residents, which is a 14th Amendment issue. All right. That's all 14th Amendment stuff. Okay. That's who they're writing laws for, citizens or residents. Where was it? Where's our, is this it? I think this is it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Rights, privileges. Let's go down to here. This one might be a little funky. It may not say the same stuff. Okay. We, the people of the state of New York, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom, right, do establish this Constitution. So it's the people that established the Constitution. Okay. So who made the Constitution for New York? The people. All right. No member of the state shall be disenfranchised or deprived of any of the rights or privileges secured to any citizen thereof, unless by the laws of the land or the judgment of his or her peers. Well, there's your trial by jury right there. Except that the legislator may provide that there be no primary election held to nominate candidates. Okay, whatever. So they kind of ignoring all that other stuff. Freedom of worship, habeas corpus, compensation for taking rights, grand jury, freedom of press, right to assemble, right, Indian lands, common law. See, common law is still part of New York. Hey, yo. All right, but it doesn't say this here. But without the people, you can't establish this Constitution. So it's telling you, not very overtly like the North Carolina one, but without the people, this Constitution doesn't have any authority. So it's the people that grant this power over to the government in order to have this Constitution. Okay. Someone said Florida. Let's do Florida now. Florida Constitution. That's right. That's right. Only the people can claim this power. If you're not one of the people, you got no power. You have equal rights and civil rights as a person, but not as one of the people. We, the people of the state of Florida, being grateful to Almighty God for our constitutional liberty in order to secure its benefits, perfect our government, and ensure domestic tranquility, maintain public order, and guarantee equal civil and political rights to all, do ordain and establish this Constitution. Political power. All political power is inherent in the people. It always says the people. It's never the persons. All right. The enunciation herein of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or impair others retained by the people. Yeah. So it's the people. Without it, right? And then they say all natural persons, right? You see how they just go into this whole thing? You see what they're doing? You know? It's like they give you the fastball down the middle. Right here. Bow. Easy. Slam. Then what they do is they start throwing you curveballs. Okay? In the dirt. You're like, what are you doing? Oh yeah, all natural persons, female, male, like, were equal before the law, have inalienable rights. Okay, because those are persons. 14th Amendment again. Look at this. This was revised 2018. Okay. Like how they put that in there. 1974, adopted 1974. It was revised then. Go look at the older ones. You'll start seeing stuff. Every person may speak right. Okay. We got another one. Let's do here, let's do New Jersey. New Jersey's trash. I tell you, it's a mess over here. We the people of the state of New Jersey, grateful to Almighty God for the civil and religious liberty which he hath so long permitted us to enjoy, and looking to him for a blessing upon our endeavors to secure and transmit the same unimpaired to succeeding generations, do ordain and establish this Constitution. All right, we the people. So the people create the Constitution, but all persons, oh boy. And then it says right here, all political power is inherent in the people. In the people. See, you guys seen a pattern here? Right? Persons get rights. They'll give persons rights. Oh, you're a person? Here, we'll give you some rights. Here's some rights. Here you go. Here's some rights for you. All right? Here you go. Peasant. But when you're the people, you're in charge. You're the boss. You get to tell them what's up. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people. They have the right at all times to alter, reform the same whenever the public good may require it. That's powerful. Okay? So that's the solution to this whole mess here, really, is changing from being a person, like a 14th Amendment citizen or resident, to becoming one of the people, right? And as one of the people, that's where all your power is. Nice. All right, so any questions? If you get stopped by the police and they ask where you're going, I just tell them I don't answer questions. Where you going? I don't answer questions. That's all I say to them. One time a cop said that to me. He's like, where are you going? I said, the heaven. And he goes, it's not what I was asking you. But I actually stopped the cop. I was like, hey, do you know a vacuum anywhere nearby? I'm looking for a gas station with a vacuum because my car's dirty. I wanted to clean it. He goes, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to whatever gas station tell me it has a vacuum. He's like, well, where are you going? I said, to heaven. I was like, what? Like I swear it was the dumbest conversation I think I ever had with a grown man before. Hey, do you know where there's a vacuum? Like, for the, like a gas station with a vacuum. Where are you going? the direction you tell me to go in if you know where there's one. All right. So, any other questions? I'm going to be wrapping it up soon. So, uh, is there an opportunity to buy a complete package where I could fill out for the trust? I'm not sure what you're trying to do, but you can ask, hit me up privately, and we'll figure out what you're looking for, and I'll sort you out with that. I need the steps to free myself and family. Oh, you know what? All right, I'll make a good point here, and I'll do this. I'll share this. Um, I do have a trust community. Okay, I always forget to talk about this. See, this is how bad I am. But I do have a trust community in which I do teach all this stuff to the community. I teach you guys I teach everyone how to operate in trust. I teach them little tidbits of things that I can't show on TikTok or YouTube. Sorry, but I can't show that stuff on there. But we can talk about it in the trust community, and I do share all that stuff uh, in there. So you could join the trust community and be part of that if you want. Um, yeah, you're welcome. And but that's where a lot of the information is going to be. It's a lot safer. It's a more private. We can have more private conversations there and stuff like that. And actually, the community is pretty awesome, man. Everyone in there is like, it's like I swear, like everyone's like friends with each other in there now. It's so awesome. So I'm loving it. I think it's fantastic, and I really just don't talk enough about it because I'm always just sort of trying to talk about what the hell we're doing, you know. So. Um, Yeah. Any other questions, comments, any rebuttals? Passport is a good place to start with, okay? Because it's and I like doing that first. I honestly think it's the best place to start because you're going to learn about jurisdiction when correcting the passport. You're going to learn about the underlining, like this whole thing we went over about the whole feudal system and how the feudal system has infiltrated our society today through these like certificates and stuff like that, and these titles, deeds, other whatever you can imagine, and all these contracts, agreements. It's we've turned our system into a feudal system, okay, by doing all that stuff and understanding that trap that was laid out makes it very easy to see it in every other aspect you do after that. Okay. Where is the trust community hosted? I have wait, Livy, are you there? Can you share that if you're here? I don't know if she's here. How can I get the police bond safely? It's usually the chief of police who's bonded. It's usually not the individual cops I found. But you can, you have to go look for it. Go ask for their oath of office, and if you get a copy of it, it should be attached to their oath. Okay. The bond is like the oath is part of the bond. So they have to have it. But they're usually bonded under the chief of police. So if you find the chief of police's oath, you'll find the bond, and it's called an umbrella bond. All right. So you guys can unmute, on Zoom here. You're free to speak. You know, I don't restrict people's right to speech. So, is the community on Telegram? I think I have a link. Yeah, you know what? I have it linked in here somewhere. Offers, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna share it in the Telegram group. So I just put the link in the Telegram group. I don't know how to move it over to here. Let me see if I can move it over to here. Unless I have it saved. Try that. I think that link might work. If anything, that link, it says Breed Divine. Yes, that's my link. All right, because some people go, "Oh, Joe, it says Breed Divine." Yes, I know, I know, I know what it says. That's still my link, I promise. Oh yeah. Oh, thanks, Mitch. He shared it on here. All right. Any other questions, comments?
I have one, Joe.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that I understood the point about the passport and this whole native soil thing. So our nationality is the state where we were born, and that's the
That's right.
bottom line, right? And then what? Like, what does that
Well,
mean?
remember what the 14th Amendment says. It says
Hmm.
that you are a citizen of the state wherein you reside. So they're talking about
Ah,
residency, and that makes you a subject,
right.
right? But your native soil is your nationality. Like if you were born in Utah and left Utah like at 2 months old, you're Utahn. That's it. Here, I'll show you. Let me show you what's
Okay.
going on. That's
Well,
why
I
they
have.
will always show that on the passport because the passport is an honest document. It has to be honest. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, read Divine 33. It has to be. That's why it always shows the place of birth on there because they have to they have to show your native soil where you were born.
Okay, okay. So that is the native soil. I've started to bring my passport with me when I drive. I
Yeah.
mean, excuse me, I don't mean drive,
Oh,
traveling
oh, you said it. You
in an
said the word.
automobile.
I saw a judge do that to somebody once. He goes, "Oh, you said it. You said drive." And I'm like, "Dude, stop it." I was like, "Oh, I want to smack that guy." All right, but yeah, we know what you mean. Only in a court of law does that like got to play out. But here it is. So this is what we're talking about with nationalities and the natives of states. See, native soil, the natives of the states. Here's your forms. They don't in Alabama. They don't write laws for Alabamians. They write laws for citizens and residents. 14th Amendment. Okay, right? If you're in Minnesota, they don't write laws for Minnesotans. They write laws for citizens and residents. Texans, they write laws for citizens and residents. Okay, not for Texans. If you're in Pennsylvania, they don't write laws for Pennsylvanians. They write laws for citizens and residents. This is why it's important. Like the whole thing about the address actually is a valid and important thing to correct because the address shows residency. Are you a resident? And look at all the forms you have to fill out. And they ask you these questions. Are you a citizen? Are you a resident? They're trying to get you under jurisdiction using the 14th Amendment. They said that was the setup for everything that has happened since then. What happens if you're born overseas and became a U.S. citizen? Well, that's under 8 U.S. Code 1101, subsection 23. It says the taking on the nationality of a state after birth by any means whatsoever. So you can use whatever means you want. You could use a declaration, like a Declaration of Independence, right? I saw this people. So someone on my Facebook, one of my friends on Facebook went and took like he printed out the Declaration of Independence and signed it. I said, hey, I like that idea. That's a good idea. And then someone's like, oh, you can't do that. You have to do these forms first, and you have to have these first, and you have to have these EINs. And I went, shut up. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How come those guys who didn't have EINs or freaking IRS forms wrote and signed the Declaration of Independence, but this guy can't? Like, do you not hear yourself? Well, in order to be sovereign, you're going to have to do all these forms first. You don't have to do shit. Write a declaration. And it's like people make these stupid assertions, but you do have to write something. Okay, that's what the founding fathers did. They wrote a Declaration of Independence, declared their independence from the king. That's what you got to do. That's all it is. You don't need a form to do that. You just need to know. You need to know inside what your real argument is. Are you one of the people? Are you the one? Are you one of the people that the government derives its authority from? Because if so, then you're their boss, and you tell them what to do, and they have to follow your orders. Are you a citizen or resident? Because if you are, then you're a subject, and you're subject to their jurisdiction rather than them being subject to your jurisdiction. Right? And say, you know what, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to dissolve your city because I don't like what you guys do. You're violating my rights, and I'm going to end it. You guys forfeit your right to remain a city, and it's goodbye. okay, to you guys. And you have the authority to do that. It says it in the Constitution. You have the right to reform and change the government as see fit. Okay? Government doesn't have the authority to violate your rights. And the second they do violate your rights, they lose jurisdiction over you if they had it. Okay? If they had jurisdiction, they lose it the second they violate your rights. Okay? So, that's the beauty. Well, that's what they do with the address, though. So the address is residency, so they can gain jurisdiction. Okay. So you can always modify the address, right? Use GPS coordinates. You can use the rural routes, okay, and all that good stuff. Okay. Showing that you're on the land. You just, I think the link is up, is above. Let me see if I can pin it. The link. Bring the link. It won't let me pin anything more than like for a minute. It's really weird. Hey, what's happening? You came in late. I came in late. I'm leaving in a few. Where is it? I got this one. I think that's the wrong one. But here, I'm gonna pin this one anyway. All right, so that's the one. You can use that link, and I think you'll find it from there. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, but is there anyone here that's actually part of the community? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's
Oh, you
me.
are?
I've
Oh,
been
you're
talking this whole time. It's Emily.
Oh, okay. So, but that making sense now, right? Look, this used to say Hawaiian. They changed it to Hawaii resident because the Hawaiian natives are like, no, we're the Hawaiians. But technically, if you were born in Hawaii, you're Hawaiian. So you see how they're even manipulating that?
I noticed that. Yeah.
Those jerks. They're always messing around something. Hawaii is a territory. That's a state. The state of Hawaii is a territory. You gotta know the difference. The state of Hawaii is a territory. Hawaii is a nation state. So there's a difference. Pinned. It won't let me pin. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. Are you saving these to YouTube? Oh yeah, we're on YouTube right now. So yeah, it'll be saved on YouTube. All right. Any other questions, comments before I head out?
I got one too.
Yeah, what's up?
So my father's a permanent resident. Is there any way I can fix that?
Your butler?
My father.
Oh, your father is a permanent resident. No, he's a resident. I mean, if he naturalizes as a U.S. citizen, he can then naturalize as a national and then become a national after that. But he would have to do the naturalization process first. But as a resident, he's a resident.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've kind of limited to what you can do nowadays. Like in the 1700s, they had a different process for naturalization. It's not like that today because of that handy dandy 14th Amendment, right? Maybe TikTok. I don't see a link. Yeah, TikTok is fucked right now because I've been trying to share the link and it won't let me even pin it. So we'll just keep doing it over and over again. All right. Any other questions, comments?
I know you want to go, but you did ask if there are any other questions.
Yeah, I always do that.
What is the deal with President Trump saying things about taking away citizenship rights from birth, whatever that is? Do you have any idea what I'm
He's talking
talking about?
You saw at the 14th Amendment in the little part of that first sentence where it says, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So that's what I think he's talking about. Because remember, the 14th Amendment really only applied to the newly freed slaves and their children. It actually does not apply to anybody else. It never really has. It's just been something that's been enforced upon everybody deceptively since then. Slaughterhouse cases, Susan B. Anthony court case. You have the Plessy versus Ferguson case. You have the Brown versus Board of Education. All those cases, kind of what they did was they compacted or compounded the U.S. citizenship issue over the state citizenship issue, and just kept burying the state citizen. But it also lays out how the state citizen is one of the people, and the ones that have the rights protected by the Bill of Rights, and then the U.S. citizens really have no rights other than to consider themselves a resident of District of Columbia, whatever rights they're given through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Well, you're just gonna have to trust the process on that passport thing. That's all. It's on the passport FOIA request. Can you tell if the passport was processed as a state national? Well, it's not state national. The term is called national. All right. So you guys got to keep that in mind. National is the actual term that they're going to use. So you'd be like an American national or national. Those are the terms that they use. It could be if you did it, like I've seen it happen where people did the copper moonshine still process and they were considered nationals from doing it that way. So it does work. The affidavit works too because they keep that paperwork on file forever. So that is part of it. So if you enter that in, it's going to be there. Okay. But I think that's it for me. I'm going to have to be getting out of here because I got to get back to work. But appreciate everybody hanging out. My wife is a green card holder. How can she naturalize without becoming a U.S. citizen? I've not figured out. I mean, there was something I had someone, I offered a solution to someone years ago, but they never did it, which is basically just go write a declaration that you're a national, not a U.S. citizen, go in front of a judge and get the judge to sign off on it. And if you could do that, that would be a way around it. But I haven't had anyone who, like, obviously I can't do that, but maybe someone else could if they wanted to try it and, report back on how that worked out. But personally, I couldn't do it, or else I would have tried it myself. But since I was born in New York, I'm a New Yorker. Hey, and that's it. That's my native soil. Okay. All right, but I think that's it for me today. Appreciate everyone hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Joe.
Welcome.